the situation in the Middle East, there's a lot of flights that have been canceled.
£20,000, so we're looking at something like 40,000 Australian dollars it was for a long haul flight from Sydney through to London.
That's one of the things. If you buy the non-refundable ticket, it's non-refundable.
If you think, right, okay, I can claim everything back through my insurance, then you may need to double check with your insurance provider.
I will never fly over war zones, just in case. Hey, fellow travelers, Mark here with the Honest Travel Podcast, and my buddy Shebs is here with me. And you may have noticed in the news lately about a lot of disruptions when it comes to travel, especially in the Middle East, but other places as well. And this is kind of a topic we need to be talking about to help travelers be better prepared. So we're going to talk about what you can do and what you should do when it comes to traveling when there's disruptions out there. And I think my buddy Shebs, let's bring Shebs in to talk and say, hey Shebs.
Welcome everyone, great to have you on board, and it is a very special episode because we only recorded our episode for Japan with Carmen Rotz, who was absolutely fantastic. We've had some great feedback, but we thought it was important to let our audience, our viewers, know what to do, because there's been so many people who have contacted myself, yourself as well, in terms of what can we do going forward with the Middle East and if they've got flights booked, etc. But you're here at the right place because Mark and I know quite a lot about travel, and we've been through a lot of it, haven't we, in the past?
We have. Part of transportation, I got to talk to the old Secretary of Transportation a couple times about some of the things that are going to protect travelers. But I think the thing I want to do, if you get nothing out of this, our big key is you need to make sure you're documenting everything. Every receipt, everything, every delay, everything. Have it there just in case, okay? Because when we're looking at these kind of delays that are out there, these, disruptions, you really have to think about it as, yes, there's the vacations that we're having to like adjust and maybe we're losing, but there's also the legal things you kind of have to, hoops you have to jump through to get some of your money back or to get refunds. Because sometimes if you're booking and something bad's going on and they've warned you, like if the government's warned you, don't go there, sometimes all the travel insurance in the world won't make a difference, okay? But that's why our golden rules, rehash it again one more time, Shebs. What is the golden rule when it comes to travel disruptions?
Keep your receipts. Screenshots are also very important as well because they can go a long way, and because they're going to ask you for proof. Because because I've been in the situations myself, I'm sure you've been in your situation as well. I'm still actually owed money from an airline from like 4 years, honestly, for about 4 or 5 years, because I booked a trip and they said there was no documents to say I had checked luggage, and I was like, you must be joking, because I always keep everything, screenshots, the lot, and I was like, here you go, and they wouldn't believe me. I had to buy another checked luggage. To be fair, they were quite a small airline, but it was the last time I ever used that airline, and I'm not going to say which airline it was, but it wasn't great. But I showed them a receipt, sent everything across. They agreed that it was their fault, and they said, right, we're going to give you your money back. Never came in. I contacted them like 3-4 times. Never came back. So I gave up because it was a lot of time. However, if people have booked holidays, booked vacations, and it's a lot of money, suggestion is to keep on top of it. And this is what we're going to talk about more in detail on what you could do going forward.
Yeah, and
actually, before you do, have you had any issues like that yourself, Mark?
Oh yeah, well, I haven't had so much, but Jocelyn, she got luggage that got lost on her way to France, and then they were trying to get it to her, and they would always miss it by a day. It would get shipped back, and so she went from Paris to Milan to Venice to Rome and back to Paris. And when they got back to Paris, they literally went and got their bags the day before they flew back. And she had to document everything. And they did get her money back. And the thing is, you have to realize is when they were going to replace things for you, and we'll talk about this later, you can't go stay at the Ritz-Carlton. You can't go get an Armani watch, to replace your things that are lost or at least trying to get to you. But you can get things like, hey, I need underwear, I need t-shirts, I need clothes. Those things you can get, but you can't get a whole wardrobe if your bag's only lost for a little while. So we're going to talk about in a bit. But let's be honest, with the situation in the Middle East, there's a lot of flights that have been canceled. And so what are your kind of rights? Well, one of the things you have to realize, since October of 2024, the Department of Transportation, they have basically significantly changed how things work. If you're delayed for more than 6 hours for an international flight or it gets canceled, and it's not like because of rain or things like that, you're supposed to get a prompt automatic cash refund. This is something I talked about with the old former Secretary of Transportation, that this is something they wanted to change because people are getting, we're getting e-credit. The thing is, but what if I'm never going to fly that airline again? That's why in the US they have it, hey, if it gets canceled, it's not an act of God or something, you should be getting your cash back, your money back. Now, you can offer and say, you know what, I'll take the e-credit, that's fine. Like, I fly with Delta a lot, so I don't really care. But
Okay.
If it's canceled like that, you have that. Now, one thing is important, if the airline refuses, just mention to them Department of Transportation refund mandate of 2024, and that should smooth things out, okay? Now, the UK, there's something different. I'll let Sheb, since that's your neck of the woods, I'll let you talk about that.
UK, Europe in general, because we're technically under the EU rules, where if your flight's actually delayed by more than 3 hours, then because in the US it seems to be 6 hours, but if it's more than 3 hours, you're technically owed compensation. However, sometimes the airlines can get around it by sort of saying things like, okay, it was a situation that they couldn't deal with, it was natural disasters or whatever. So I've done a lot of digging. I've spoken to quite a lot of the airlines this week. I've spoken to a lot of travel agents, hotels, and just really funny actually, Mark. One of the things that I found out from travel agents was that if you book a package holiday, then you can get everything. So for example, if your flights get cancelled and if you've got hotels booked and you've got excursions booked, all of them will be covered under one umbrella.
Oh.
So that way you're not having to contact the airline, sorry, the hotels, you're not able to go then contact the excursion. Whatever you've got, everything will be refunded through a travel agency because you've booked it through them. And in the UK and Europe, we have insurances for any agencies, because you said if you go bust, for example,
Yeah.
then unfortunately you're going to have to go through an insurance. So always book through a reputable provider, or an airline. Of course, they're obviously going to be reputable, because then they're always covered through an insurance. I'm sure that's the same in the US and Canada as well, where I'm sure you are covered by an insurance purpose, aren't you? Where if something went wrong, there is an insurance. Because do you remember back in, I don't know whether you remember, back in the COVID times, the pandemic time, there were so many businesses going out of well, because they can afford to refund people. So STA Travel, I don't know whether you remember, they were great for students. Yeah, unfortunately, they went bust because they had to cancel so many flights, so many holidays, so many packaged holidays that they just couldn't afford to give everyone their money back. What they told everyone was to contact the insurance providers through what we have here, Atoll, and it helps you then get your refund back. They were quite quick as well, giving people a refund. There were other companies who offered vouchers. There were big ones that they said that, well, if we give back people's refunds, then how are we going to operate as a business? I hope, because I was reading through quite a lot of articles. I've spoken to a lot of editors this week, and they were all saying that they've switched from inspirational travel to travel disruption. And this is why we're here as well, by the way. So one of the things I also want to explain is, I'm sure, Mark, you've done this before, where when you've gone to book a holiday and when you've gone to book for the airlines itself, there are different options you can book.
Yeah.
You sometimes will get an option for flexible ticket, and sometimes you just say, right, I'm just going to book it outright. If you book a flexible ticket, and I'm sure you've done this before, Mark, where you thought, well, I don't need it because I'm definitely going to go on this trip.
Yeah.
And I've done this as well, where I've said to myself, well, I'm not going to go. I'm definitely going to go. I don't need to change my flights. But if you booked a flexible ticket, it's an extra sometimes $200-300.
Oh, yeah.
You're able to cancel your flight at any time. I'm sure you've had that before.
Oh, yeah. No, and the thing is, they have that, and that is one of those things like, oh, I know I'm going to fly. Why spend an extra $200 if I'm going to go? I know I'm going to go. But the thing is, the flexibility that gives, and usually it's kind of the business traveler that doesn't know, like, hey, we don't want to lose the money on this ticket because we bought the non-refundable. And that's one of the things. If you buy the non-refundable ticket, it's non-refundable. However, in case of extreme circumstance like COVID or something like that, then they cancel your flight, then they do have to refund you, even if you get a non-refundable ticket in the U.S. now in different places. But the thing is, if it's not necessarily something that's happening to you, like if we look at when you're thinking about canceling, like right now you might be thinking, hey, maybe I don't want to fly. Like I've got a ticket for later this year to go to Jordan, right? And you're like, well, I want to cancel it now. Well, they haven't canceled those flights yet. And the thing is, if you have a non-refundable ticket and you can't, you're kind of out of luck. Maybe they'll give you some credit. You might have that. What you have to realize is, if you think it might get canceled later, it's better to wait to get the cancellation from the airline itself, because the airline cancels it. Oh, remember, if the airline significantly changes your schedule, You're like, hey, I can't do this anymore. It's like, hey, it's happened to me before where they changed my schedule. So instead of getting in at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I was getting it at midnight, and I had a
Yeah.
dinner meeting. And I'm like, well, there's no point in me going to the meeting. I'm not going to go on this trip. So I'm like, I want my money back, and they give it back like that. And that's one of those things. If you
Yep.
got to cancel a trip, even if they change the timing a little bit on the connector flight, that can be one of the reasons why I say, hey, I do not accept this change. I want my money back. That could be something you look at. But if it's everything's okay and you cancel on your own, then you're out of luck. And if later on they cancel everything, like, wait, I want to get that cancellation money. You already did it. Okay, that's why it's important. You might want to look around for that. Now, that's why what I'd recommend is contacting the airline directly, like, hey, is there something we can do? Because they know there's a lot of other people that are kind of worried. And a lot of airlines have been a lot more flexible since COVID about like, hey, okay, let's try to, we'll give you some credit to go change the other thing, or we'll put it back. Yeah, you're not getting your money back. You want to make credit, and that's usually the more of the legacy carriers. You're going to the low cost. They're kind of like, hey man, too bad, out of luck.
In a few weeks' time, because we don't know, and that's the thing, because we
We
don't
don't
know.
know. And that's one of the things you also have to think about is like, let's say if you're going through a connector thing, you're going to be flying through Dubai or Abu Dhabi. Like those airports, Kuwait, they're not going right now, like, so that might be something that's impacted. And you're like, well, I don't know. Like, well, we haven't canceled it quite yet. If like, look, I'm not getting my money back anyway, you might as well just let it wait until the end to see and see if something happens. And the thing is, we're talking about flights a lot, but it's not just flights, right? You got hotel things you want to kind of think about too. And, you talk about this merchant of record issue that's out there. When there are issues like this, what you have to realize, if you book through a third party like an Expedia or Bookings, that is actually the person that I would say is like, they're the one that kind of like, there's the one that has the contract. You don't have a contract with the Hilton. You do not have a contract with Bob's Airbnb. You have a contract with Expedia. You have with Booking. So you have to go through them. So if you're like, oh, Booking's not helping me out, or I can't get out of this thing, I'll just go directly to the hotel to ask them. They cannot do anything because they do not have a contract with you. There's someone else in between. You may be the person staying there, but it's Bookings that did the ticket. It's Expedia that got the ticket. That's why I usually don't book third party. We'll book direct, because you book direct and you call the hotel and say, hey, we can't make it. And this is actually what happened to us a few years ago. We were going to Israel. There were some missile attacks, that happened. And so we, had to cancel like literally like the morning of. We'd already checked in, like, hey, we can't go. And they're like, sorry, like it's less than 24 hours. I'm like, yeah, but this is going on. They're like, too bad. I'm like, well, we asked, like, hey, is there something you could do? Could you maybe give us credit? And they actually did give us 2 years of actually, because, hey, if you come in the next 2 years, we'll save your hotel and you can get that. So that was kind of cool. There was at least that there, because they're like, hey, it's too late for that. So at least we had that. So we went back to Israel. We could actually use that and stay in those places. So something to kind of think about, because sometimes it is the negotiations you got to kind of talk to people about. It's like, look, I don't want to have to like do the nuclear option of getting a charge back on my credit card, and then there's all kinds of issues that go with that. But it is something to kind of think about. But like, what have you been hearing about from the hotel side?
If you have booked directly through as Mark just said, you could obviously contact them. But however, if you use things like Booking.com or Agoda, if you're a specific client on those platforms, so for example, I'm a client on the Booking.com platform and I'm a Genius client, sometimes you can cancel a booking even up to 24 hours in advance. So check with those third-party apps that you do have those options. I don't know whether you've ever used those before, Mark, but they are very, very useful, because you can sometimes book and then you think, oh, actually, I found a better hotel, I'll just cancel that. It doesn't charge you at all, and then you can go book in another hotel, because those are really, really good. Sometimes you have to be wary of those as well, because obviously if they're giving you a discount as well, so it might say non-refundable.
Yeah.
Because sometimes if you book a mobile ticket, for example, or a cell ticket, it's non-refundable. So you just have to be super careful if you booked a really cheap hotel, but you're getting a 5-star hotel at the same time.
Yeah.
You just have to be wary that it will be non-refundable.
Anytime there's a deal, you got to be careful.
Those rooms that they have, sometimes they're trying to flog as an extra, because the travel agencies or whoever that they booked through, or excursions that they booked, it's just extra left over. So they'll try and get rid of those. So they'll try and get them off as cheap as possible. So those are good sites to go on. A lot of viewers that you have, Mark, you'll be able to tell me better? Are they people that book things themselves? Are they solo travelers? What would you say?
We try to give people the skills to book on their own, and so they feel comfortable to do it on their own. We have a video that's coming out like how to check for bad hotels online. And if a hotel is like, we have a no refund policy for anything, or you only get half your money back, a month out, you're like, why is that? Like, there must be something that people are canceling for. Like, you want to pay attention to that. It's like, hey, is this one I can get out? Especially if you're going to go someplace that has been, has some volatility or some things that have happened there in the past. You want to kind of focus on that. Like, hey, maybe I do need to be careful, because we do that. Like, depending where we're going, you never know when things can happen. But depending where we're going, we might do a little bit more in terms of insurance or where we're going to stay. Like,
You mentioned the word insurance before, so the other thing as well to remember is I spoke to a couple of insurance companies as well. A lot of the times they don't cover wars, or they don't cover any conflicts or anything like that. So if you think, right, okay, I can claim everything back through my insurance, then you may need to double check with your insurance provider, because they probably won't be covering any of those sort of things. Definitely conflicts, anything like that, unfortunately, a lot of the times insurance providers don't cover it. Now, I don't know about the US. Do they have these sort of things within your insurance policies?
so our insurance policies are very similar. There's certain things they won't cover, but there's some things they are, and that's why whenever you buy plane tickets now, they offer, hey, do you want the insurance? And some of that insurance is just if you lost luggage, or you can get medical evacuation. Then there's other insurance you can buy, which is like on your own, you can take care of and have that. So it is one of those things, we always, whenever we do international, we always recommend it. If you're from the US and you're on Medicare, Medicaid, that will not cover you abroad. And your insurance from back in the US probably will not cover you when you go abroad. So you need to have other insurance when you go out there. But if you're over 62 and a half in the US, like, no Medicare will cover you. Like, you'll be paying everything out of pocket. So you do have to get travel insurance. And some companies actually require that you have travel health insurance just in case something happens. So that's one of those things. And also with the insurance kind of stuff, you also want to look at the credit card you use. Now, I'm not going to put a credit card commercial in here, but the credit card you buy with might offer other insurance for luggage or evacuation. So you want to check that fine print that's on there. And that's one of the things AI could help you with. You can scan your document, upload the document for your travel insurance, say, hey, what things are covered with this and what things are not covered, so you can kind of have an idea.
All of this in mind, I'm sure people still want to get away, because in the US, as we've spoken about before, where you only might get 2 weeks vacation, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and you want to make use of your time. One of the things in the news this month is, one of the good news is, a lot of airlines are starting to do longer haul flights. So
Yeah.
Lufthansa announced that they are going to do long haul capacity, and it's gone up by 6%. So they want to bypass the Gulf in the Middle East. So Mark, we spoke about Japan on the last episode. What other areas can people look for? Because there are obviously other destinations people go to, but however, the other thing, the downside, it could be a lot expensive than what they usually would pay.
Yeah, and so, but the thing is, it's like we have a whole video talking about places we don't travel. Like, I will never fly over war zones just in case. I'll not go by war zones just in case, because we've seen things. There was a KLM flight years ago that was horribly shot down. I mean, there's reasons why you're like, hey, you don't do that. And these other lines, because I know with Lufthansa, they're going down to South Africa. I think, are they going to Singapore or Bangkok? It's actually both of them. And so it's one of those things that goes around. Other things you can look at, if you look at the airlines that let you stay for a few days, like we've done, Finnair from the U.S. to China, and we could have gone from the U.S. going west to go to China, but we decided to go east. So we went to Helsinki, spent a day and a half in Helsinki, then flew on to Beijing,
Yeah.
and when we came back, had another little layover just to avoid some of those things. There was no conflict there, but it's more like I just didn't want to have that long of a flight, so we could do a couple overnights to work better with the kids. And so you might look at that, and that's one thing you have to think about. It's like, hey, when you're looking at your safety, you think, hey, you know what? The extra $100, $200 probably worth it. You're seeing more and more of these because the airplanes, the capacity they can do, you can do that. And, and you'll hear these things like the Chicago to like New Zealand flight, which is like, 19 hours or something like that. I don't think it's that long, but like those super long haul flights, you're like, that's insane. But hey, would you rather do like a 19-hour flight, or do you want to do like a 12-hour flight with a 4-hour layover and then another 12-hour flight, and you're like, well, shoot, I guess I'd rather get it out of the way. And that's something that you have to kind of think about. Now, this isn't really necessary with the disruption kind of thing, but it's also when you're thinking about where you're going, how you're planning your trip, that can impact it, because you might think, well, this airport has, maybe it's an airport that has lots of strikes and it's summertime, you're flying on a Friday, very popular strike day, So maybe it's like, I'm going to fly direct and pay a little bit extra for that to kind of avoid some of those issues.
But one of the downside is, I also read in one of the well-known papers, is that Cathay Pacific thought they could make a lot of money out of people by charging, it was 20, no joke whatsoever, we can show a screenshot of this, £20,000, so we're looking at something like 40,000 Australian dollars it was, for a long haul flight from Sydney through to London, avoiding the Middle East Gulf area. Now that's extortionate, Mark, and there are going to be companies that are going to do that, and potentially, if this carries on, we don't know. But this is also good knowledge for future, by the way, because there's also always going to be stuff
because it's not, it's not necessarily like wars or things like, there's other things that happen. You have like natural disasters. In the U.S., part of North Carolina, there's horrible flooding, and like literally the highways are gone, stuff like that. You have to have alternate ways to go. If you're looking to go from Bordeaux into Italy, the train line, they're rebuilding it because there was issues there. Like, hey, I have to adjust to these things. What can I do? And so it's good to know, like, hey, what are my options? And sometimes, hey, look, the plane isn't going, I can't get the connection anymore. Can we do something else? Because that's another thing, is if the airlines cancel your flight or give you that big enough disruption, like, one, yes, you can get the cash back, or you can say, look, put me on a different flight, and it can be on a different airline. It doesn't necessarily have to be with them. I've actually, when I was flying back from Amsterdam about a month ago, lady I was sitting next to, she was supposed to be on British Airways, but all her flights got canceled, and so they flew her from London to Amsterdam, and then Amsterdam back to the U.S. because they couldn't get anything from there because everything was booked out. So that is one of those things. Just because that airline isn't going there or something happens, hey, this is I booked a flight for here. They need to get you there.
A lot of our viewers, just be very wary that there could be a potential that if this carries on, they might start charging customers a lot of money for those long haul flights, and the people will say, well, there's no other routes, because there will be only a select few that will fly, and that's where I fear that people will be overcharged for a flight that should have cost $500 and it's going to cost you $1,000, where it's double.
This is one thing we as consumers, when you see things like this, you're like, you know what? I'm not going to buy from there. It's like, there's a lot of people, like, we have lots of people that write us like, is it safe to go to Spain? We see those protests in Barcelona. And I mean, I can't tell you how many of our fans said, we're not going to Spain this year. During the whole Greenland thing with Denmark, there's a lot of stuff from Denmark, and people were canceling their trips to Denmark. And so the Denmark Tourism Board was reaching out to travel agencies in the U.S. saying, no, we still welcome Americans. Please come, please come. So it's one of those things, like, if you see things you don't agree with, or you're like, this doesn't seem right, or that price is way too high, then sometimes, like, you know what, we're not going to go there. Like, we've done that ourselves. I'm like, you know what, I really want to go to this destination, but for that price, I just can't do it. Like, Jocelyn does go into Greece, but flying to Greece from the U.S. direct is like stupid expensive. But I can just fly to Italy for like half the price, then get an EasyJet for 40 euros. I'll just do that instead. But I think another thing, when we're looking at your insurance stuff, we talk about the documentation, but also don't forget, file that insurance claim. If you're not sure, because a lot of people, they get the insurance and they don't file it. You're like, oh, we just went into the convenient clinic. I sprained my ankle. They put a little thing on. It was only like $50 to go there or whatever. You're like, but you have the insurance for it. File the claim that's there and make sure you have the documentation. If you get pickpocketed, just because you say you got pickpocketed, you got your bag stolen, unless you have the police report, the insurance company's like, dude, anybody could say that happened. So make sure you have the documentation, which I know for some people, like we've had this before, we take students abroad and they'll lose something, something might get stolen, and like, okay, well, we've got to go and we're going to spend the next couple hours at the police station to fill out the forms so you can get your insurance and get your money for your code or something like that. They're like, I'll just get a new code. Like, for them, they're like, it's not worth the hassle. And for a lot of these insurance agencies, they know that. They're like, hey, a lot of people aren't going to file because, are you going to spend 3 hours of your day, 4 hours a day to fill out all these forms to get $25 back for a lost t-shirt? That's one thing you got to kind of think about. But also, I think if you're going to be doing the chargeback thing, you want to make sure you have this letter of rejection from the insurance company. Say, look, my insurance company doesn't have. So it's just kind of like you have everything lined up. So you're like, look, we contacted the hotel. We went through our insurance agent. None of these things here. So since we didn't get to stay there, all these things didn't happen. It shouldn't have happened. Now we want to go. So you go to Visa or MasterCard or one of your insurance, your credit card company, you can do that. So there are other options out there for you, but that's like the nuclear option that can be bad for your credit. So that's where it's sometimes one of these, I don't know if I want to do this or not. So it all depends.
Credit cards actually do refund you. They say it's, well, here in the UK and in Europe, they say credit card is a better place to book because you're more likely to get your refund back through a credit card. If you book through your debit card,
yeah,
it's more tougher. So
yeah. I would never. I would never book anything with my debit card. I would book my credit card every single time.
Yeah.
I have debit cards to get cash out, and you know how we hardly use cash anymore. So like my debit card's buried somewhere in the wallet, my receipts from 5 years ago, because we're not getting that out. Like that's the thing you got to kind of think about is if you give yourself that extra protection. That's why it's important to look and see what credit card works best for you. Like whether it's there's some that don't have international, transaction fees. Other ones give you extra hotel insurance or whatever, or travel insurance, medical care, emergency evacuation. You got to check these things out because there's so many different offerings with those credit cards that sometimes, so I've been in line where there's snowstorms coming in. People are online. They're not calling the hotel. They're calling their credit card concierge person because that's where all their stuff's through and they're going to get it taken care of. So a lot of things to think about with these cancellations, with all things going on. Just make sure you're paying attention. Keep abreast of the news. Go look at the State Department in the U.S., the Foreign Office in the U.K. Are they recommending you go to a place or not? Like, they obviously are very much overly cautious with things, but in certain situations they're right. But you do want to have an idea what's there because it can impact if you can get refunds if you do get canceled on.
Please leave a comment and let us know what sort of stories you've got, and we'll be able to sort of look into it for the future. Because
that could be a good future episode. What happened that got you canceled, like, or got your flight canceled? Did you get your money back? Like Jocelyn's crazy experience of chasing her suitcase all over Europe, and then it was there the last day, and she's like, she has a video of them running and crying because they finally got it back.
And also, as I said, the airlines, the hotels, if you booked it and they're reputable, that they should be able to refund you.
I think that's important to say. Reputable ones. When you book direct, if these businesses have been in business for a while, they're usually decent. They're usually going to work with you. Like, that's the thing. It's like the ones where the guy's like, hey, we'll give you 2 years of credit. It's like, I could tell they're like, obviously, like, they're like, hey, we've lost a lot of business here. We're not going to make it, but we'll give you the credit. Like, people are going to work with you. These airline people that you get the phone call, you're nice to them, they'll be nice to you, they're going to work on you. You come in there, guns blazing mad. It's going to put it on the back foot. They're not going to help you as much, even though they'll do their job. But if you want, treat people well, things will go a lot better when you're working on this.
Well, as I said, leave your comments. We'll look into it for the next episode.
Do you want links to the articles we were talking about in here? I'll put it down in the show notes or the video description on YouTube, or if you're listening on Spotify, we can put it on there so you can check out the articles and read on your own. For that, we do have a few comments from our Japan fun with Carmen Roberts. She was awesome. Buddy Chris Bates says, I couldn't agree more. We had a lifelong friend out of our Airbnb host. This is in Japan. I bought a watch. The entire store staff came out to bow and hand us the beautifully wrapped package that was placed in Osaka. If you look lost, someone who speaks no English at all will come up and attempt to help you. It's not fake. They take pride in caring about others, sometimes more than themselves. I could tell anytime we looked a little bit lost when we were in Japan, someone was like, you need help? Like, they'd be like, I can't speak to you, but I can see you need help. And they'll like have their little map out and show it. Like, there's one lady's like, you're here, that's there. You're like, okay, cool. So really nice things. World Affairs expert says in Japan, even the bus drivers wear a suit. Many Uber drivers too. Yeah, a little more formality there for sure. And then Brandon Gasik 10, super excited to go for my study abroad this semester. Thanks for the tips. Yeah, Brandon is going to Japan for his study abroad semester, so super pumped about his experience. Have a fun time. We've got this podcast out. You can watch whatever you want. We really appreciate if you like and subscribe and do share it with your friends, because having a deep, in-depth conversation about travel is something you don't see too much online now. When you're looking at TikTok and Instagram where you get 30-second tips, we've got a 35-minute blog or 35-minute video here, really, or podcast really going in depth in some of these topics. So we really hope you'll come back. We put these out about once a month, but if we have things like going on in the world right now, we'll put extra ones out as well. So if you have topics you'd like us to cover, cover. Future topics we're looking at. Miss Jocelyn, my wife, is going to be coming on to talk about, traveling with kids in the summer, what to do with that. So it's something tailored for families. So if you have questions that you want to have answered about family travel, please let us know in the comments below so we can have her get ready for that. And we've got some other fun stuff and some not as much fun stuff like, other bad flight experience we'll probably talk about in the future. But Shebs, tell them where they can find you.
So you can find me at Shebs the Wanderer. Follow me there. You can, if you've got any questions, if you've got any problems, by the way, with airlines, etc., let us know, and we'll do some investigation, and we can discuss it in our next episode, and let them know that we've got a platform that we will investigate for you. So please do leave your comments, and we will try and do our best to help you. If you want to get in contact with me, as I said, at Shebs the Wanderer is my platform. Get in contact. I'm very happy to help our audience and make sure they're not being scammed or being taken advantage of, let's just say.
Thanks, Shebs. We appreciate it. And all you fellow travelers, wish you happy travels wherever you're going this week, this month, whenever you're watching this. If you want to watch this again, do subscribe, and we'll see you later. And we'll say bye from here in my office and Sheb's office as well. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.